TV for life.
Good evening and welcome to Face to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Nilesh. Now, Sri Lanka badly wants to change the system change that we all called out for and cried out for from 2022 onwards. But how do we change things, and what do we change, and above all, how do we change ourselves, and how do we convince society that each of us needs to change? So it's a lot about our own behavior and the behavior of groups within society. And I am very pleased to have with me in the studio this evening Mr. J.M. Sampath, PhD, who is a top behavioral scientist based in Bangalore in the state of Karnataka. Good evening and welcome, Sampath.
Thank you, Naresh.
Right. So, behavioral scientist. Let me first ask you to explain that term, because in Sri Lanka for too long we have been entrenched in our behaviors, and that's part of the reason that we ended up in a huge economic mess, because we wouldn't change while the world changed around us. So, what do behavioral scientists do?
To put it in a nutshell, Naresh, behavioral scientists try to help you understand why you do what you do, and if you need to change, where is that you need to focus your attention. It's about understanding human existence, because you get to experience another human being through their behavior, through what they do and what they don't do. And if you have to understand them, you need the science of understanding behavior. That's in a nutshell behavioral science.
Right. And where do behavioral scientists operate? We know about corporate trainings, yes, but in bringing in change to institutions and thereby to society, how do you operate?
I personally work with the leadership of any group. I've worked with government agencies, I've worked with multilateral institutions like the Asian Development Bank and so on, where we work with the leadership to bring about a small shift in their mind, which has a long range impact on the whole organization. We also work with the bottom of the pyramid, where we are working right now with children, trying to help them understand how they can make their life and how they can impact their world to start with. At the end of the day, when we think of large institutions, it's important to understand that each of our institution is a very micro institution, and until we don't work with the macro is not going to really show up. So it's a balance between the micro and macrocosm.
Right. And to give our viewers a little bit more information about Mr. Sampath, he is the managing director of Arpita Associates and also an AI company, Optimize.com, which are based in Bangalore, and he is the founder and director of several other companies as well. He holds a PhD in sociology from Gujarat University and an MA from the Madras School of Social Work, and prior to that he earned a BA, Bachelor of Arts, from Madras University. He is the author of 3 books and of various behavioral instruments which are in practice in many countries, and in fact he has worked personally in 15 countries, mainly in leadership development. You described yourself earlier to me as a voracious thinker. Would you like to expound on that?
Yes, if you give me a fat book, it's likely to become a pillow for me. But if you give me a paragraph which has a beginning and end, I can ruminate over it for days together and try to extract the essence of it. In fact, knowing my personality, a group of friends gifted me a book which had nothing but 175 parables and anecdotes. And that became my favorite book, which gave birth to many more work that I did. So I like to ruminate over things, reflect on it, try to extract the essence out of it. I sometimes tell that human mind should be so powerful that it should be able to crush and get oil out of husk. Everything has so much to give us.
Right. Now, tell me about, is this your first visit to Sri Lanka? Have you worked with corporates in Sri Lanka before?
Oh yes, between 2000 and 2003, we did a lot of work with John Keels. We also did some work with Lanka Equity. At John Keels, we developed their leadership pipeline because at that time, there was a hope that things will change and they wanted to be ready to grab the market when things changed. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, and we know what happened thereafter. This is not my first visit to Sri Lanka, and I love this country. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people. You genuinely feel the warmth, and it looks like I'm in another state of India.
Wonderful. Now, let me ask you some specific questions about the Sri Lankan psyche, the way we see ourselves and the way we behave. Now, first and foremost, we have this this illusion, perhaps, that we are a tiny country, that we have no effect on the world stage or even the region, that we are dwarfed by the larger countries, India, China, Russia, and the Western countries, and we don't really stand up for ourselves. In Sinhalese, there is a saying, we call ourselves Punchi Ratak, which is, Punchi means small, petite, but we really aren't. We are a mid-sized country by population, by land area, by GDP. We are a mid-sized country, but we have got used to thinking that we are small and inconsequential. How do we break out of that? How do we instill a sense of national pride?
Well, I think if you have to start building a country, you'll have to start working with every individual in that country. Until they don't own the country is not going to move forward. Because at the end of the day, it's the people who give an insight to an outsider as to what that country is and how it's moving forward. When you talk about these this example of people thinking they are small, they can't do much, I'm reminded of a very interesting parable. It seems General Nobunaga decided to fight a battle with another country which had 10 times more army and power than his own number of soldiers and the kind of power he had. So as they were raising for the war, they stopped at a Shinto shrine and he said, I'm going to toss a coin. If it's heads, we win. If it's tails, we will lose. And he tossed the coin and it turned out to be head. And everybody was so charged that they went and won the battle. While they were returning, an AD of Nobunaga said, nobody can change the fate. And Nobunaga took the coin and showed it to him and said, yes, nobody can change the fate. And the coin had both sides heads. Sometimes it is, when you don't believe in yourself, you need somebody to believe in you. And you'll have to create a faith that whatever you want is possible. And you need if it's a country, you need a leader who believes in the country and people who believe in that leader. What happens to many of us when we have been battered for a long period of time, the kind of experiences we have had, we start losing faith in ourselves. And to just feel good, we start blaming everything. We start blaming the world, we start blaming, and we find excuses to remain where we are. I tell people that there are 5 friends you should keep away from. One is excuses for not doing something. Reasons, giving a reason why this is not possible. Then because oh, because of that we can't do this, because of this we can't do this. And the fourth friend is a very funny friend, which is rationalization. When you said we are a small country, we can't do anything, we get succumbed by everybody else, you are only rationalizing for not being able to do what you're perfectly capable of doing. And the fifth friend is the most dangerous. Yes, but. When you tell people, yes, all that is fine, but in Sri Lanka it's not possible. Yes, all that is fine, but in my society it's not possible. I only want to share a small little experience of my own in the society that I live. We had 2 lakes and all the builders had left the sewage into the lake, and we wanted to take ownership and we wanted to fight that. So we took the courage, we started working, we would spend our weekend in setting right the place, and it took 2 years. Soon the government gave a grant, and today we have a beautiful lake in which in the morning at least few hundred people walk. But that comes from somebody taking the initiative. I think you will have to believe the change starts from me. But generally what happens is we expect others to change before we can change. And we also lock ourselves based on the world around us. I do a small little workshop in my exercise where I say, I put people in a circle and I say, all of you have a belief that until the other person doesn't move, I won't move. So what happens to all of us is we are stuck where we are. Then slowly you say, okay, if somebody takes one step, I'll take a one step. So fortunately lucky that somebody takes a step and you take one step, you don't move forward. Now, in this kind of scenario, you have made your movement dependent on somebody else. And the key for your growth lies in the hands of somebody else on whom you have no control. But if you really want freedom, you will have to say, whether others move or not, I am going to move. That's when you have true freedom. Whether others believe or not, I believe in it and I will start doing. Maybe it will take few weeks, few months for somebody to follow you. A few years for a larger number to follow you. It's not that what happened in 30 years, 40 years is going to change in next 30 days, 30 weeks or 30 months. It will take some time. But are we having the courage to stand by what we believe in? And do we have faith in ourselves first and then our society, then our country? I was given an offer to work in the US in 2000. I said, no, I will not leave India. That's my motherland. And when I see my aircraft landing, I would feel that joy of reaching a country that I belong to. You need that pride and joy of belonging to some place. And that also means, are you willing to take the ownership for that place?
So, that's another point that I want to ask you about, the sense of patriotism. It's been sadly lacking in Sri Lankans. We saw towards the tail end of the war, with war victories, yes, there was a sense of patriotism, but then that doesn't last because, you know, the war ended and then you have to continue with that confidence, and that illusion was immediately shattered because the government moved towards a more authoritarian regime, and people's rights were more curtailed, and then many people lost faith in the country, in the system, and as a result, most Sri Lankans, or many Sri Lankans, would prefer to live somewhere else, and especially during the 2022 economic crisis, people were actively trying to leave. And we are talking about millions, and well, so many did manage to leave, but how do you then convince this population that no, this is a great country and it's up to you to make it great, not just run away from it and go somewhere else, and you might succeed, but you might be a nobody in another country. how do you instill that sense of patriotism, especially in a country like ours, which is, it's known as paradise to travelers across the centuries, and there is a reason for that, because it is a paradise. When you look at most of the other countries in the world, it is a paradise. It's just that we've got our systems wrong. So how do you get this patriotism back? Because we've seen it in snatches over the decades. How do you get it instilled?
It's not happened overnight. I think there was a time when people believed in the country and had a lot of patriotism, and it dwindled or got eroded over a period of time. And if you want to rebuild it, it is important to build that confidence in people, and also people needing to take that ownership. I am again reminded of a very interesting story that I had read once. It seems as a village headman who lost his legs in an accident, and so he started using crutches to walk. And soon he was so good in using the crutches that he could do any activity with the crutches. And being the leader, he trained his children, grandchildren, and soon by the time we came to the fourth generation, everybody in that village used a crutch to walk. And there's a young man who asked, "Hey, God has given legs, and why are we using crutches?" And the villagers said, "Oh, you're a smart young man who has come to tell us that we can walk on our feet. Why don't you give us a demonstration?" So on a Sunday morning, the whole village gathered, and this man stood in front of them, dropped the crutches and tried to take 2 steps, and he fell flat on his face. And everybody laughed at him and said, "Look, we said it's not possible." And they continued to live with the crutches. This is the kind of mindset that comes into us when we have been beaten for a long time and we start believing that we can't do anything, or this is how life is. But if we are willing to support somebody who comes and says a change is possible, we need to believe in them for that change to happen and to percolate in a way that it will start impacting a smaller circle, which keeps growing, and soon the country will be on a different path. But that is not possible until every one of us is willing to contribute to that change. And for me to be able to do that, I believe I need to start believing in myself first. Running away is the easiest job to do. Okay, I'll go and survive somewhere else. I'm smart enough, so I will. And if everybody does that, what will be left behind is those who think they cannot, and therefore the country is further weakened. It's the stronger and the mightier who need to be here and help the country grow. So at the end of the day, are we as citizens willing to take responsibility? Am I as an individual willing to take that responsibility to make that shift? That is what it calls for. And what is my own sense of ownership as a citizen of a country? When I say I am a citizen of India, what do I believe in my country? Do I really believe that it's a great place? I strongly believe that India is a cultural heritage. There's so much of wisdom there. If only you can pay attention and listen to it very carefully, you can grow so well in that place. But then we also were beaten for a long time. We were ruled. I think we are a country, we never waged a war on somebody, but we were beaten and taken for a ride. But I think we still believe in ourselves, and we are definitely working hard to stand up to countries. And you can see in the last year the kind of happenings in the global geopolitical scenario. India is standing up and saying, I don't need to be pushed around. I can stand on my feet. So I believe that's something that should start happening in Sri Lanka.
Right. You mentioned colonialism. Is this a hangover from colonialism that, like you said, we were second class in our own country for centuries, and the reason that we were taken over by Western nations was basically due to their superior technology in weaponry. So you know, where we had bows and arrows, they had muskets, that kind of thing. And it wasn't quite as simple as that, but but it was technology which enabled those countries to basically rule much of the world. I mean, you take the Portuguese who ruled much of Sri Lanka's coastal areas. Portugal is a very small country in Europe, but they punched above their weight, and they had an empire around the world, which doesn't exist anymore. But our mindset was that those guys are superior, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, and they established that in society, because they headed the government, they headed, this is prior to independence, they headed the companies, the plantations were run by them. So this mindset was that we are second class. But you see, India has broken out of that, and many other countries have. But still, for all, we seem to have this inferiority complex that yes, it's our country now, but we are not on par with many other countries in the world. How do you break that?
I think we need to understand a little bit of historical evolution of this thought process itself. I think initially when we were invaded, we tried to resist, we tried to fight, but the weaponry and the other things that the others had who invaded us was much more powerful, and we got defeated. And that defeatist mindset started being planted in us at that point of time. And over the centuries, that has not been removed from us. I'm reminded of a very interesting parable. It seems there was a magician who was sitting in his drawing room, and he saw this cute little mouse playing very happily, and every now and then it would go and hide under the sofa. So one afternoon he took the magic wand, started talking to the mouse and said, "Hey, I see you being happy and running around, but every now and then why do you go and hide under the sofa?" The mouse said, "You seem to be a great mouse psychologist. You're right. I'm happy playing, but the minute I think of the cat in the house, my heart goes palpitating. I go and run and hide myself." So the magician took pity and changed the mouse into a beautiful cat. Now the cat used to roam around the house, sit on his lap, play with him. But over the next 2 weeks, he found that the cat never stepped out of the house. So one afternoon when he was sitting with the cat, he said, "I don't see you stepping out of the house. What's your problem?" He said, "You're right. There's a Doberman next door. When that flow barks, my heart goes palpitating." So again, the magician took pity, changed the cat into a huge Doberman, and the dog used to go out, play with him, sit with him in the lawns. And once in a month, this magician had a habit of going into the deep jungle for his meditation. And he said, "Let me take the Doberman with me." And the dog didn't know where he was going, but the minute it saw the forest, he said, "I'm not coming in." He said, "Now what's your problem?" He said, "There's a panther inside, it'll kill me." He said, "No, I'm there, don't worry, come." He said, "Nothing doing." Again, the magician took pity, changed the dog into a panther and took it into the forest. After he finished his meditation, he was coming back and he said, "Come, let's go." And the panther said, "No, I'm not coming." He said, "Now what's your problem?" "Oh, there are hunters in the village, they'll shoot me down." That is when the magician took the magic wand, turned the panther into a little mouse and said, "Whatever I do to you, until you don't change the heart of a mouse, nothing is going to happen to you." We have to remove that colonialism from our mind. As long as that lives in us and we think we have been subservient, we have been used by others, and we have never had our own spine to stand up, we are not going to stand up to what we believe in. We will yield to any little pressure, and therefore change is not going to be something that will last. So therefore it is important to change the mindset of the mouse. And for humans, that colonialism which has set into us needs to be broken out of. It is no more there, but in our mind it is there. And as long as it is in our mind, our behavior will be an outcome of what we hold in our mind, nothing else.
Now, Sampath, if I were to ask you in a practical way, how you can affect change in people. Let's take a typical Sri Lankan. We've been living for decades in a particular way. We're used to corruption, mismanagement, lethargy, more than anything else, this lethargy, where we don't feel the energy that we ourselves feel that energy when we are in other countries. You take a group of Sri Lankans and take them to any country in the world and they perform marvelously. But here in Sri Lanka, there is a certain laziness perhaps, or it's a tempo which is very slow, and that affects society, organizations, companies, the state and so on, and in the end the entire country. But how do you get people to change that, to become energized? I mean, we have 20-year-olds who act like 80-year-olds because of the way that they have been brought up and the way that society has taught them, basically. But now we need people to be energized and to stand up and take chances. Start up companies and start up small factories, shops, whatever. Take some chances, get energized and work hard. How do you get people to do that?
Niresh, it's interesting that you're asking this question, and my entire 35 years of research is in that area. I started understanding why are people in conflict, and the answer I got was their values don't match with each other's. When our values don't match, we are in conflict. Now, the approach I take to bring about change in people is, I believe that you should start working with the cause, not symptom. All that you said, the fear, everything is a symptom, it's the behavior. More important question is why I do what I do. You will get to experience my values from my behavior, but what in me makes me behave the way I behave? It is what I believe in. It is my belief system. And until I don't go and touch that belief system and modify that belief, like the mouse we saw, until the mouse believes that it is in constant fear, there's a belief system there. Until I don't go and modify that belief, we are not going to really bring about change. In fact, the way I give meaning to the word values is, my values are the beliefs I hold within myself, which governs my behavior in any given context. Some of these are known to me while others are not, yet they govern my behavior. So if I have to bring about a deep change, I need to understand what are the belief systems that I carry. Now, when I talk about belief system, each of us individually carries some beliefs that make us do what we do. I can guarantee that none of us do anything that we don't believe in. When there are a collective set of individuals who believe in a similar thing, a society forms a certain belief system. And many of the things that you said just now seems to be a social belief system, that we can't do anything, we are a victim of circumstances, we don't have power to change things, which is, as long as you believe in that, you can't do anything about it. But the day you go and modify that belief, you will be able to do something about it. In fact, the way I came across that very process was from a real life situation where I used to have meeting with men of influence, wealth in the corporate world, and they would call me for a meeting and I would be there at the set time and they would be busy with something else. 5 minutes I can manage, 10 minutes I can manage, but 15 minutes I'm already angry. And when I walk in with that anger into the meeting, my meetings were dysfunctional. And they were becoming very sensitive, saying that Sampath is insensitive, he doesn't understand us. And I said, my God, you are the one who called me at 10:30 and you kept me waiting. So I'm angry. It's natural. Then obviously you can't fight with them. So I said, let me change at a symptomic level. So I started going late for a meeting. What I found was very interesting. If the other person was also late, I had no problem. But if somebody was waiting for me, I would get so apologetic. I would say, sorry, sorry, sorry. And my meeting was still dysfunctional. That was the first time in my life I sat and wondered, look, I'm not happy that way, I'm not happy this way. What's actually bothering me? And I came up with 3 statements, which I held very closely to my heart. Time is precious, it can't be wasted. I also believe that my time and your time are equally important. So if you made me wait, I felt upset. If I made you wait, I felt apologetic. My third belief was very interesting. Waiting time is a waste of time. When I looked at all the 3 beliefs, I went and modified the last belief. waiting time need not be a waste of time. Niresh, you won't believe, the very next morning, when I was at a meeting, when I was made to wait, I carry an idea book with me all the time, even before I carried it. I would remove the idea book. I would be starting to work on designing a program. I would be doing something useful in that waiting time. And when I was called into the meeting, I no more was angry. So if you really want to bring about a change, you need to look at what are the belief systems that exist in the culture, in the individual. As a society, what are the collective beliefs you hold in Sri Lanka, which is not allowing us to stand up and realize the potential of this country. This country has unlimited potential. If you have to realize that, you will have to start believing in yourself and you will have to start believing in the country. You will have to go and modify those beliefs which doesn't allow you to realize your own potential and that of the country.
Interesting indeed. Now, you mentioned several factors which I'd like to talk about. Societal beliefs. So, most of us are not even aware that society has these beliefs, but we go along with it. That's our day-to-day routine. Society has dictated that things happen this way, and we go along with it. We may grumble about it, but that's the way it is. That is society. You mentioned lateness and keeping people waiting. Here in Sri Lanka, we keep people waiting all the time. If you say meeting at 10 a.m., you might find out of 10 people who are supposed to come for that meeting, 2 will be there at 10 a.m. Another 2 might come in by 10:05. But you will find the last person will come around 10:30. So you could start perhaps at 10:15, but it's all dysfunctional. But we are okay with that. But we're not okay. We know it's not okay, but we put up with it because the societal belief is, well, that's the way it is. But interestingly, and you may or may not know this, but during the time of President R. Premadasa, which was in the early 90s, he made punctuality one of the cornerstones of societal change. And he ensured that the state machinery worked on time.
Interesting.
So he made sure that his cabinet of ministers got to their ministries by 8:30 or whatever time. He would personally call them in their offices, not on their mobiles, to ensure that they were there. And once the minister gets there, then the entire ministry staff will also have to come in. And then this actually filtered down, including to the private sector. So that was a wonderful time when many people were on time. But of course, there are a lot of people who have many thoughts about his presidency, but that's a different matter. However, after he was assassinated, the next president was not punctual, and the one after that was even less punctual, and the entire country, the society, just reverted back to what it was. So this is the societal beliefs that you were talking about. So that's interesting, isn't it? But it shows that societal beliefs can be changed.
Oh yes, on the time front, Niresh, go to Japan. For them, every second counts. They would apologize to you if the bullet train was late by 1 minute. They would apologize. They would pay you if it was delayed beyond a point. And they would think that they did something really wrong. That's the cultural belief, and everybody respects that and values that. In fact, my daughter had gone there on a cultural exchange program, and they were to reach the school at 8:30 in the morning, and the bus reached at 8:28. The door of the bus was not open till 8:30. When they opened at 8:30, the school gate was open and everybody was waiting there to receive them. That is again a country's belief in time and value of others, the respect they have for others, and so on. But how does this belief system form is something which is very, very important. These societal beliefs, how are they formed? Again, I love parables and I love stories. They are very powerful ways of conveying some points. It seems there was a monastery in which there were young monks who were learning how to meditate and practice meditate, and there was a master who was guiding them. But somehow from somewhere there was a cat which came into the monastery, and it used to mew around and disturb this young meditators. So the master said, why don't you tie the cat, keep some milk so that it will be happy and you can meditate peacefully. So the students followed the master's instruction. So they tied the cat, kept some milk, and it was happy and they were happy meditating. Years passed by and the master died and a new master came, and the cat was tied and some milk was being kept so that the meditation can go well. After a few years, the cat died. So the young students went to a nearby village, brought another cat so that the instruction of the guru will be followed, kept some milk before meditating, and the practice continued. Now many other monasteries were looking for new practices, and they came into this monastery and found that tying the cat and keeping some milk, they thought aided the meditation. So they also went and started getting cats and keeping some milk before starting meditation. And a book was written about the significance of tying a cat and keeping some milk. You see how the belief builds up, until one new monk came to the monastery who was allergic to the cat fur. He told the students, please take the cat, give it to somebody in the village, they can take care of it. I can't stand because I have an allergy. So the cat was removed and the students continued to meditate. So this is a process where we don't question things. Unfortunately, we don't understand. Every ritual had a purpose. Everything we did at one point of time had purpose. Yes, we had to become subservient to the colonization because we didn't have the power. That doesn't mean that I'll have to instill that in my psyche. Even when I have power, I start believing I don't have that power. Then I would be living the same life. Even the circumstances changes, I remain the same because I don't realize that I have the power. It's like tying the cat and keeping some milk. I didn't understand why, and I follow it as a blind ritual. So it's important when we look at a society, we should start asking why this is relevant, why this is not relevant, and how do we start becoming more relevant, understand the context, and can each one of us do what is needed rather than what we want. Yes, there is a fear of being the first, like the man who wanted to walk without crutches. There will be opposition, but do you believe in yourself to make the kind of impact? I'm sure your channel is working hard to bring about that change, and you have that conviction and you don't give up. We need many more people who will have that conviction and faith in this country that it can live its true potential, and therefore its people can live their true potential. That has to start from individual, somebody who will take the lead. And once, there are two sets of people I've come across. One who will believe when you show them. The other set believes and makes it happen. Unfortunately, the latter is very few. The former is a large population. So they're waiting to see evidence. And when they see some evidence, they're still doubtful because they're yet to have the faith in themselves to think of a possibility. So that needs to be instilled in the people and in the culture, and then things will start changing.
Now, now most of us, we become complacent with where we live, where we work. Yes, we'd like to make more money, live a happier life and travel a bit more, but many people don't feel the need to change themselves, and they are not very aware of who they are, what they are, and their own behaviors, and where they actually want to be. This type of self-reflection is not practiced enough. We tend to go with the flow. You join a company, and you work and you expect a promotion at a certain time, but you don't, you don't try to break the mold, think out of the box, and do something spectacular. It's that way, and especially in the state sector, it is absolutely like that.
True.
How do you get people to self-reflect on themselves and try to improve upon themselves?
So, two parts to your long question. One is, why is that we don't want to change? Why have we become complacent, and why are we happy where we are? It's a very interesting game, Naresh, between the mind and you. If you change, in reality, you're telling your mind, look, you're not been running my life as it should have been. And the mind is very, very upset with you. When I say mind, it's your ego. You mean to say, I didn't know how to run your life? I'll show you. Another part of that is, we all, I make this statement very jovially, but I mean every word of it. First half of our life, we are busy making conclusions. The remaining half, we are busy proving them. And when one of your conclusions, one of your beliefs comes true, you feel so happy, in spite of that having a damaging effect on you and the environment around you. One of the most powerful statements people want to make is, and when they get an opportunity to make, they pat themselves and feel happy, is, I told you so. Macha, I knew this is not going to happen. Okay. How many times have you heard that? Without realizing that you are contributing to that reality come true. Because that's what you believe in. That's your conclusion. If we can get out of that mold, and when the situation changes, look at everything afresh, leave aside your conclusions, leave behind your conclusions, and start looking at the context afresh, and see if you can add to the context and make the change. Then we can move forward much more easily. But the fear of the unknown. And I also tell people that there is a reason why people don't want to change. Because where they have landed here is not the place that they wanted to be. They went through a lot of pain to be where they are today. But today, if they believe, because somebody came and said, oh, we will make this place of oasis, and if they believe and if they changed, and halfway through they ran away and it didn't happen, these people who changed will have to go through the pain again to get back to where they were. So they were saying, why start? Let me be where I am, let me be very happy. But that way you don't end up realizing your real capability. So it is important to see every situation in its own merit and be able to do what it demands out of you, rather than come from the past to respond to the present. It's interesting that we get to hear a lot of good things about what's going on currently in Sri Lanka. But if all of you believe in it and start doing what is required by each of you, then the change will be at a much more faster rate, and transformation will start beginning to happen. But if you sit in doubt, like the villagers who said, oh, you are telling us that you can walk without the crutches? Show us. And many of them say, let's wait and watch how long this will happen. And when one mistake happens, everybody says, look, we told you, no, this is not going to work. That mindset needs to be changed. First, we'll have to believe in ourselves. We'll have to believe in the world outside and start doing what is demanded out of us than living in our own past and being caged by the cage we have built ourselves.
Excellent. And on that note, I am afraid we are out of time, but that was a very fitting conclusion. Some words to live by for our culture, our society, and you, of course, have seen Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan corporates and over the years. So your optimism is something that I personally have taken note of. So thank you very much, Mr. James Sampath, PhD, behavioral scientist, managing director of Arpita Associates from Bangalore. Thank you for being with me on the program.
Thank you, Naresh, and all the best to every Sri Lankan to bring back this country to its glory.
Absolutely. And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.